This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Good morning. This is November the 4th, 2023, which is 178 weeks from the first time we did one of these Saturday services, which was June 6, 2020. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm joined by a whole group of people, and I am not at my usual computer. So what I'm able to show and to do, I think I can show everybody for a moment. And that's not it. That's still the hotel. Okay, there's a small view of everyone. Everyone who's on screen. Good morning, Meg. Good morning, Paula. Hi, Ann. Hi, Maria. Hi, Sari. Hi, Ron, Carolyn, Jeff, Alex, Bob, Harold, and Connie, and Jack, and Carol. And if I missed you, I apologize. Working under smaller than usual circumstances. Let me get back to my main screen. Okay, hi. I am here in Tarrytown, New York. It's my cousin, my second cousin, Matthew, and my new second cousin, Shelby. They got married. I married them last night. And I'm just panicking about where I left their marriage license. It's in my suitcase. So we're at a hotel. It is a really amazing time. And I want to just start with just letting you know where I am. And I'm very much in this two worlds that it was a party last night. All the cousins, we all got together. We haven't all been together. And we all had a decision at the table last night, which was cousins' weddings are much more fun than when the cousins all get together for funerals. So we all could agree, cousin wedding. If you have a choice between the two, we all thought we're going to do cousin wedding wins every time. We had an amazing time last night, and it was just wonderful to have a reason to celebrate. And even in the and I said this in the service yesterday, was that traditionally at a Jewish wedding, we break a glass at the end of the wedding. We break a glass. Why do we break a glass at the end of the wedding? And everyone knows the answer to that. Tradition. That's why we do it. There's no absolute reason we do it. But one of the stories that we tell, one of the symbolism is that even in our moments of joy, like a wedding, that we remember that there's sadness and destruction in the world, that we don't live just in happy, full solar spirituality. We don't just get joy, but there's also sadness. And I said yesterday that we are so, as a group, we are so filled with sadness and fear that it's wonderful to have this small opportunity to celebrate. And I'm not sure I'm going to admit to being hungover, but that's as close as you're going to get from me right now. You notice my very deep voice.
Acceptable.
We had a reason to celebrate last night, and we sure did. So glad you guys are all here, and thank you for bearing with the slight difference of technology. I wanted to start today first saying hi to all of you. Good to see. Oh, there's a whole second screen of people. Hi, Alan, Eileen, and Jim, and Patty, and Michael, and Rita, and Michael, and Roberta, and Stephen, and Afia, and everyone who's on audio only. I'm so glad. I'm really honored. So glad that you guys are all here. I wanted to start with, is there something that happened in the last week where, now I can't, let me try to get this out right. I don't give, there's not an exact homework assignment of what I ask you to do every week. Sometimes I say maybe try saying get to instead of have to. Sometimes there's a specific homework assignment, but I think that you can extrapolate out. There's a theme that all 178 services that we've had on the Saturday morning, there's a theme that we are getting to. And the theme is towards living lives more consciously, living lives with greater compassion, greater kindness, more love. And that's really the homework. Everything that we talk about here is all about everything that we talk about is about how do we become more loving? how do we find more compassion for ourselves? How do we find more compassion for other people? And really, that's the heart of a religious life. And the heart of a religious life is that sense of priorities and the idea that love and connection is at the top of our list. And so that being said, so this is what the service is about. The service is about being and acting more loving. And is there something that you did in the last week and that you want to share with the group and say, hey, I want my moment of, you know, I I, I have my friend Sherry last week. I had given her it's like, do you think you can not? She's saying I'm finding myself a little testy and a little cranky, and I'm saying things that I wish I didn't say. And then she was very proud on Tuesday when she said to me, you know what? I spent a week trying not to say the obnoxious thing. And there were at least 5 moments when I held my tongue, where I didn't say the thing that I thought of. And she was proud of herself. So, that being said, is there a thing that you might have done in the last week where we as a group can give you yeah, let's give you a pat on the back. You did that thing for which you're proud. I back in the day, 178 weeks ago, I gave out little raffle tickets if you had a thing that you were proud of having done. Is there somebody? I can't see everyone on the screen at the same time today. So step on up, don't be shy. Is there a thing that you did in the last week that you're a little bit proud of yourself and we can be proud of you for too?
Well, I can go first.
I
Uh,
appreciate that, Bob. Go right ahead.
that Normally we celebrate in October Sweetest Day, and I forgot about it at the time. So on Wednesday
But
when
Bob,
I was
I
out
have to,
shopping,
Bob, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Just not everyone is from the Midwest and not everyone knows what Sweetest Day is. So could you explain to us what Sweetest Day is?
it's a day when you do special things for your sweetheart. And that what I did is I bought her a nice card and wrote some things in it, and also a dozen uh, pink roses. And she was just thrilled with that. And then she made me a card.
She makes beautiful cards, Rita does.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, Bob. Is there someone else who did a thing in the last week that you're proud of? That reporting on, you can say, yeah, I did a thing. I did a thing in this last week that I'm really proud of. I know I got somebody else out there. Go ahead, Al. What's the thing you did in the last week towards this idea of repair the world? What's the thing you did?
Yeah, I'm looking for work right now. I'm out of work, and I gave myself permission to take my time in terms of looking for work. I got a couple of things done, less than what I had planned, and I gave myself permission for that to be okay.
It's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? You gave yourself permission to
Yeah.
have a little extra time. Can you just, I can imagine that means that everyone with whom you interacted, Al, had a little bit of a calmer experience than if you hadn't given yourself that permission, right? And it amplifies. Who else has got anyone? I'll take one more. Maybe I'm getting a little bit greedy. I got one more person who did a thing in the last week where they were kind to themselves, give themselves a little extra time, a little bit extra space. Go ahead, Michael. Thank you for volunteering.
Got to fill that silence, right? Um, I I similar to I gave myself permission to rest this week, and I didn't. I had enough energy by the end of the week, so the people I was seeing on Friday, I was able to actually, be with them and not just be exhausted waiting for the day to be over.
I love it. I love it. Well, okay. So now Michael has given himself a little bit extra space and time. Al's given himself a little bit extra space and time, which means that everyone else, I'm sorry, all the extra space and time has been allotted for. Um, so everyone else back to stress, pushing yourself. Fair enough?
No, thank you.
Excuse me, religious authority here telling you telling you that you should be you don't have a lot of time. You should be stressed out a little bit more. So Al helped me to come up with some matrices, which is the odd plural of the word matrix. Metrics. Alex, we got something going on.
I figured out Rags is retransmitting your audio. I just muted you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. You might have heard of this phrase in Judaism. We have a Hebrew phrase called tikkun, Tikkun, tikkun olam, O-L-A-M, tikkun olam. Looks like this. And it's an ancient phrase that's used in the Talmud, and it means for the betterment, for the repair of the world. And I want to share with you a story from Lurianic Kabbalah. So this is hundreds of years old. Rabbi Isaac Luria had this story in which, and he called God the thing without end. That was a name he had for God. And the way Isaac Luria told the story was Ein Sof, the thing that has no end to it, right? You have the idea of infinity. And if you think about infinity, it's an amazing idea that something can go on without end. And that's what Isaac Luria referred to God by. And Isaac Luria said, so God was everywhere in the world. This is basis of Lurianic Kabbalah. Kabbalah meaning receiving. That's the whole idea of a spiritual life, is to receive, to take in. And Lurianic Kabbalah says that God, the thing without end, was everywhere in the universe. And God realized, because God was without end and everywhere, that it didn't leave space for people to have free will. That there's no, if everything is filled with God, if God is Ein Sof, God is without end, there's no space that doesn't have God in it. And so how can human beings act with their own agency? And so God had this idea, this is a little bit trippy, but stick with me, is that God contracted God's self into God's self. Right? God pulled God's self into God's self to allow there to be spaces in which there was not God, where people could then exist. So God pulls God's self, God subsumes God's self into God's self. And there's this vessel that is filled with, so God is without end, but you then compact and compress this godliness into a package. And this infiniteness is now in a finite, and you can see my hands are moving. And that's the idea, that there was all this energy, and God had pulled God's self into God's self, into these vessels, and they explode. Little bits of shards of compressed holiness wind up all throughout the universe. These compressed pieces of godliness exist, but some's over here, some's over there, some's down this way, some's buried deep. And that our job, Lurianic Kabbalah, our job is to find these shards of godliness and to take the pieces and to repair the world, to bring God back into the world. That's a beautiful story. And that's what we're here to do. Yeah. We're here to collect pieces of God, pieces of godliness, to recognize them and to rebuild this world into a place of repair. I'll bring you a quote. Hold on. Here's a quote from Angela Davis. She says, you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. You have to act as though it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do this all the time. We'll take comments from Bob and from Rita. Go ahead, Rita.
Well, that myth or that reading many years later was a Hasidic creation myth that Martin Buber told me about it. And in it, the divine presence was placed into a sacred vessel that dropped and broke, and sparks of the divine presence floated to the universe and lodged in every being. And it was written that it was our duty to interact with each other in such a way that was loving and all that stuff, that divine presence was, that spark was released. And so that's just another way of what, every couple thousand years, the rabbis come up with a new way of putting these things. But
it's all about bringing peace back to the world, and that it's our job to do it. That it doesn't get done, we do it. Thank you, Rita, for sharing that. Go ahead, John. John, you're on mute. Makes it a little harder.
There
you go, John.
I didn't mute myself on purpose. I don't know. Anyways, it comes back to FUBAR. And
okay, help us out, because not everyone knows what FUBAR is.
Okay, FUBAR is a description, an acronym standing for fucked up beyond all repair or recognition, whichever one you want.
FUBAR.
Yes.
FUBAR. So how's this bring us back to FUBAR?
I've just in the last little while, it has occurred to me that so much of what's going on right now is because of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that includes much more than just the Jews. And I have to wonder if it's time for those descendants to just take a step aside and allow the people who would identify as descendants of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah.
Yeah.
To let them have a turn. Because the patriarchy has so screwed this world up in every way possible.
Yeah, I would change our pronouns a little bit and say we have screwed this world up.
Yeah.
And we are the ones responsible for changing.
Under the leadership of the patriarchy. I'm quite stuck on this these days.
And listen, we are abetting the patriarchy.
Yes.
We are abetting it by not fighting against it. If we really cared about it, would we not be protesting right now?
And some are.
Some are. Are we? Besides
individually, can only speak individually.
Yeah. How are we doing that? And this is the Angela Davis quote. We have to act as though it is totally possible to transform this world. We have to act as though we can overcome patriarchy. We have to act as though we can overcome hatred. We have to act as though it's possible to radically transform this world. And I'll ask you, think about it for a minute. Are your actions saying that, yes, I believe it's possible to radically transform this world, and I'm going to live that? It might be sobering to find out, no, you're not, or no, I'm not doing enough. I hope that would inspire us. Go ahead, Jack.
Well, I think everybody has to throw pebbles in the water to begin with. And not to forget that the beloved also doesn't have a beginning. There's no beginning and there's no end.
So, help me with throw pebbles in the water means start small.
Well, if everybody threw pebbles in the water, all those ripples would create the change.
That all of us doing our little part.
Right. And God for me, the beloved only responds to those who respond to him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we go around thinking we have free will.
I used to believe I had free will. I had no choice. That's a joke. I wrote that line. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jack. As become our custom here, I'm going to ask us to take a moment away from Angela Davis and take a back look at Mary Oliver, because one of the ways we can transform the world is this. We have these instructions for living life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. I'd love to hear if you have something you can tell us that's happened in the last week where you paid attention, where you were astonished, and where you told about it. And like Jack said, it's if we all do these things, we can change the world. I'd love to hear, how'd you do this in the last week? Is there something that I can tell you? Yesterday, I saw a holly tree. I'm here in Tarrytown, New York. I've never seen a holly tree. All I've ever seen is people take pieces of holly, which is kind of like mistletoe shapy thing with red, and they put it on their door. I didn't realize this thing grew into a tree. I saw this beautiful tree last night, and it was just astounding. And so I paid attention. I was astonished, and I'm telling you about it. Give me something else. Somebody, if we haven't heard from you, is there something in the last week you can share about where you paid attention, you were astonished, and you can fulfill that third part right now by telling about it?
This one isn't from last week, but it's about a month ago. I was I was visiting my sister, and she lives on a rural property, and there's no light pollution around, and I could see all the stars in the Milky Way, and I was really stunned. And she takes it for granted now, but I was really in awe of all the stars in the Milky Way, and it really
it awed you.
Yes, and I really liked it, and I wish I could replicate it here in my town, but we have too much light pollution, unfortunately.
And thank you for sharing, Jim. And isn't that just such a thing, how we get used to it? We just get so accustomed that we don't see it. I think of it often as the Post-it note that I write a Post-it note and I put it on the wall, and I remember that Post-it note for maybe a week. I mean, after a week, it just becomes part of the wall, and I don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
The half-life, and I think this is part of why this quote is so important. The half-life of astonishment is really short. The half-life of astonishment gets you, but then within 30 seconds, it's half as astonishing as it was 30 seconds before, and 30 seconds after that, it's half again. It's fast and fleeting how astonishment goes. Thank you for sharing that, Jim. Somebody else have an astonishment moment in the last week?
I did.
Let me hear from you, Carol. I'm trying to take new voices. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. I taught a class where we looked at Exodus 4, the attack on Moses. And I said, you can get all the interpretations you want, plus different translations. You just have to go on Google. That's not what I'm interested in. Everyone in that group has had a peak experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about Exodus 4? Because I don't think everyone can pull up what that was.
After Moses is given the charge from God to go back to Egypt, he and Zipporah and their two sons are staying overnight en route to going back to Egypt, and he's attacked. He's going to be killed. And they say he's being killed by God. And Zipporah circumcises their son and touches the circumcised foreskin on the leg of one of the people there. Could be the son, could be Moses. And the attack is over. And I said, I don't care what archaeologists say about it. What I want to say is every one of you has had a moment of astonishment, of wonder, of revelation. What were you like 2 days later?
And what's the answer to that question, Carol?
The answer to that question is now you understand the attack on Moses, because you can't keep the revelation in your head. You lose your faith. You say, I must have imagined it. It didn't really happen. It didn't mean what I thought it meant. And they all knew it. And they all gave me their experience and how it dropped out. And then how they had to fight their way back to remember that there was something astonishing, and that was more important than the fact that they couldn't hold on to it immediately.
I love this. This is why we're talking. This is why we're talking about astonishment. And Carol, what you're saying is we have to fight for it. We have to pay attention. We have to. It doesn't just happen. It does sometimes just happen. It reminds me of there's an old joke about Murray. Murray every day prays, God, please help me win the lottery. God, help me win the lottery. 36 years after he starts praying that prayer, he hears a voice, and the voice says, meet me halfway, buy a ticket. Yes, we're going to have astonishment. You're going to have some astonishment in this next week. But the chances of you having astonishment are much greater if you're looking for it. You willing to look for astonishment in this next week?
Yeah.
It might be astonishing. What do you got to lose? Those are mostly rhetorical, those questions. Okay. Let's take a minute just to have our minute of awe and gratitude. I can't get the timer to work on the screen today. So let's just take a minute to sit in this quote of paying attention, being astonished, and telling about it. So for 1 minute at a time now.
This
Thank you for the minute of gratitude. Back to this Angela Davis quote. You have to act as though you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform this world, and you have to do it all the time. Here's a quote that's going to follow up on this. This is from Pirkei Avot, which is an early portion of the Talmud. And this quote says the following: it is not incumbent upon you to complete the task, but neither are you at liberty to desist from it. It is not incumbent upon you to complete the task. We're talking about what Angela Davis is talking about. It is not incumbent upon you to repair the whole world. It is not incumbent upon you to do all of the repair of the world. You can't. And it's not your job to fix everything. And you are not free to not try. You are not, it is not incumbent upon you to fix this world, but neither are you free to not try. Where does that strike you? Love to hear from some voices we haven't heard from yet today. Yeah, Michael. You're on mute, though.
No, I just, there were two things. One, I just wanted to say this, that when you're making these quotes and putting this together, I'm asking, prior to that, ask the question of, we talk about as if. It's a very interesting phrase. Do this as if, blah, blah, blah. And that's just something I want to throw out there. What does that mean? But the other piece is there's something to say about what it means in terms of holding two opposite things at the same time.
Yeah,
which I think is the task of the spiritual path, the meditation path. So just those two thoughts. That's
thank you, Michael. And this idea of being able to hold something in its opposite. That's that paradox and the paradoxicality that's at the basis of a religious life, is knowing that something is true and not true at the same time, and knowing that it's ours to do and we can't do it at the same time. It's a both and. Go ahead, Ray, and then Ruth.
Well, yeah, you can keep trying it, but sometimes that gets to the point where you feel like you're giving yourself one hell of a headache, because you just keep doing it, and there's no change. So, talking to a guy I thought I sort of knew, used to go to the church I went to, and we're talking about one thing and another. And they said, well, this new church you go to. I said, yeah, it's this church, and we're open and affirming. We accept everyone. He said, oh, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah then. That's why I sort of had to walk away. But, because I wasn't going to change his mind. I wasn't going to sit there and argue with him about it and just give myself a headache. Yeah. So if we can figure out how to do that without giving yourself a headache, I'm all up for it. But I don't want a headache.
I'm fair enough, Ray, but fair enough. Thank you. Go ahead, Ruth.
I'm an advocate for people with hearing loss. And I beg people to speak up and ask for what they want. It's like hitting your head against a stone wall.
That's what Ray was talking about.
Most people don't want anybody to know that they have a hearing loss. So I've come up with a line. I don't know whether it helps, but I'm inventing what's known as a chutzpah pill, a pill that will give people the guts to say, hey, I need this help.
Right.
But I gotta tell you, it's very frustrating.
Ruth, you're pointing at something really important. How many of us like asking for help?
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, how else are we going to get help unless we ask for it? What a true thing. Go ahead, Gwyneth. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for modeling what it's like to need help, to advocate that we need. The reason we have captions on this meeting is because Ruth said, Rabbi, I need us to have captions. So we do. Go ahead, Gwyneth.
I was just thinking, about repairing the world and all that. It can be so paralyzing to feel like you can't fix all of something. Like, what do? I can't fix war. I can't fix gun violence. But I had somebody point out last week that a thing that is helpful is in not feeling so powerless is realizing that you may not be able to fix all of some sort of a big issue, but that you have to do the things in life where you do have power. Like, right. I could make one person's day today. I can't fix war. I can't fix that, but I could go out and I could make somebody's day. I can do something. And that's really helpful to realize where you do have power, and that even if you can't fix all of a big thing, that there are still individual small things that you can do.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Angela Davis is getting at, is that we have to act as though this it's possible for us to radically transform the world just by being kind to one person. Being kinder to one extra person can radically affect the world. We have to be committed to that. We have to do it all the time. Go ahead, Michael, and then any other.
I just want to come back because I put out the question of what does this as if mean, and now it's starting to make more sense.
Say more.
Well, just from the standpoint, if you banging your head against the wall and then feeling frustrated, the as if frees you to have other options. So that's very important.
We act as if banging our head against the wall helps.
Something, but as if is a release valve, so as I was talking, thinking, just, maybe one response, another response is maybe just going deep into meditation or fasting or do some kind of alternation of your existence. Stop, but make this, that's what I'm thinking about now, because it is such a frustrating and painful time. And you have to go.
It's revolutionary.
You have to go
revolutionary deeper. To do something different, to stop.
Yeah.
To act as if this is revolutionary. This is what we're talking about. I mean, this is why I run this service, is because if I can get you to act a little kinder, and you can get to other people to act with a little more love and compassion, and not to say that snarky thing, and to be proud of yourself for not saying that snarky thing, we can change the world. I do believe this. I act as if it is possible to radically transform the world. I have to believe that it's possible.
It's also one last thing. It's, for those of us, I mean, myself, who's interested in feeling free.
Is freedom comes from acting?
I don't know. I'm just saying, I think that there's perhaps the capacity to actually be free.
Amen. Let's hear from John and then from Avon. Hi, Avon. Go ahead, John.
One of my favorite analogies is that of the snowflake, in that a giant tree can be standing for all kinds of time, and there's a snowstorm. And the first 2 billion snowflakes come and accumulate on the tree. And then one more snowflake, just one, tips the balance and the tree topples over. One snowflake by itself is going to do nothing, but one snowflake being part of the total picture of things, it tips the balance.
I think that's what we're all called here to do. I think that's why we're called to be together, is to be that bucket of snowflakes. Go ahead, Avon. Thank you, John.
I was thinking about the thing where it seems like many of us had the immediate response of, oh, but I'm so tired of arguing with people.
Don't argue with people.
And that was kind of my response to that, was like, I think a lot of us think of transforming the world as a struggle, as an argument, as dealing with that freaking Sodom and the guy who heard accepting and went, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, like that. We all deal with those people, and they certainly make your day worse. But the part where that argument is, if it's unproductive, then it's probably not part of transforming the world. Just existing as someone that guy respects but disagrees with him is repairing the world.
Amen.
Just say, I don't want to argue about that, is already an action.
Right. It's not about convincing someone. It's about listening to them, being seen, being visible.
Yeah, just existing as someone who I especially with something like that, there's many individuals who think, you must have horns and be in league with the devil to simply disagree with them on some things like that. And to just exist as a normal human being who goes, oh no, I like other people is shocking to folks. And so and at the same time, in many more ways, the little kind things we do make massive differences. Dealing with that guy, conversation is probably not going to change his mind. But the person at the grocery store who has their pronouns on their name tag, and oh, thank you, young lady, for helping, those moments are incredibly impactful. They make people's day. They remind people that you're on their side and that you care that the world becomes better,
right,
for us all. And that is it's the doing it all the time, way more than the arguing with people who don't plan to change is.
And it's doing it over and over again. That's the Angela Davis, the second sentence. And we have to do this we have to do it all the time. Go ahead, Ron. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
I just want to say that one of the things that I try to do to make the world a better place is I try to engage people that we disagree on fairly fundamental things. And I do it by when they want to argue, say, I don't want to discuss that. I had a very close artist friend who passed a couple of years ago, and her husband he watches Fox News and whatnot continually, and he wants to argue politics. Mm-hmm. And I get together with him and we talk about other things, and we talk about being kind. And every time, and he is a very kind person until he gets into this rut of arguing.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to humanize not only myself, but all the other people that he thinks are wrong.
Right. The more we isolate from and disagree with, the less human we see the other people as.
Yeah.
And how important it is to see these are all, we're dealing with human beings. Thank you, Ron. Mike, go ahead, Ruth.
My experience has been that I can talk myself blue in the face. And I've had the experience of people coming back to me years later and saying, oh, we heard you speak and it changed our lives in this and that way. And the first time that happened, it gave me the feeling that it was worthwhile to keep talking because somebody was listening. And it's hard when you're frustrated, but it gives you the understanding that it's worthwhile.
Amen. I agree. I completely agree. And I think that's maybe that's why we have the get together, is to bolster and buoy each other and remind us that it does seem like we're not making any progress, but we have to act as though we have to act as if, that's what Michael was talking about. We have to act as if we are making a difference. And I have to believe that we are. I have to believe that the kindnesses that we show to other people and the kindnesses we show to ourselves has an effect on this world. I'm going to bring us a different quote in. Thank you all for this lovely discussion. This is a quote from Rumi. It's a large quote. I'm going to read it. He said this. He says, there is one thing in the world you must never forget to do. If you forget everything else and not this, there's nothing to worry about. But if you remember everything else and forget this, then you will have done nothing in your life. It's as if a king has sent you to a country with a task and you perform 100 other services, but not the one thing you have been asked to do. I'm going to stop the quote there. It's as if a king has sent you to some country to do a task. It's as if a king has sent you on a task. King says, go to this country and do this task. And in its performance, you've did 100 other services, but not that one thing. You've missed the whole game. You've missed it. So Rumi is saying, it's as if a king has asked you to do one task. And this quote always reminds me, do you remember in the movie City Slickers, where Jack Palance holds up a finger and he says to Billy Crystal's character, he says, there's this one thing you need to always remember, but he never says what that one thing is. And I think that's what Rumi is saying as well. It says, Rumi is saying, it's as though the king has asked you to do one task. And in the service of that task, you did 100 other wonderful things, but you didn't do that one task. You missed. You had one thing to do. I'll get to you in 1 second, Jack. I want everyone, give yourself a second to think, what is that task? What is that task that you have been given to do? That you might have done 100 other wonderful things, but there's still that one task that you're being asked to do, and the king has sent you to do. Are you doing that one task? Jack, did you still want to jump in?
Yeah, that task for me is being obedient to my heart.
Oh, that's beautiful. That task is to be obedient to your heart. I love that. I love that. Someone else have a gloss on that? What's that one task you've been asked to do? Oh, it's going to be very quiet. I'm okay with quiet. I'll wait.
Love unconditionally?
Love unconditionally. Amen. Go ahead, Stephen, and I love to hear from some other people. What's that one task? What do you got, Stephen?
I'm not sure what the task is, but the way I learned the lesson was that we each have one task to do, and the most important thing to remember, whatever age we are, we haven't done it yet.
The task is always still ahead of you.
Yes.
Yeah. We have one task to do, and it's still ahead of us. And sometimes that makes it a little hard to think of what the task is, but it's straight in front of our face. It's right there. We're just not there yet. Harold, Connie. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Harold, Connie, what do you got?
I think the task is to be kind to everyone regardless. And that's something that's very hard, because whenever you have, dysfunction in the family or dysfunction with other people, it's hard to be kind. But kindness gets everything.
Amen. You have one task, and the way you're hearing it, the way I'm hearing what you're saying is you have one task, and your task is to be as kind as you possibly can be.
Right.
All the time.
Correct.
Start with yourself.
Start with being kind to yourself. Yes, it's amazing how many people hear the task is to be kind, and we forget to be kind to ourselves. Do we do a show of hands? How many of us have a hard time being really super kind to ourselves? Same group of people who have a hard time asking for help.
Oh, yeah.
I think those Venn diagrams that might be the same circle.
Yep.
Yeah. We have one task to do. Can we, let's break it down so that it doesn't feel like an infinite task. Let's just make the task today. Look at the time, whatever time you have right now, wherever you are. What's your one task to do today? What's the one thing? Not the whole thing that the king has given you and you have to spend your whole life doing it, but what's the one part of, let's chunk down the entire task. Let's chunk down this is my life's mission, and just for today. It's a wonderful phrase, isn't it? Just for today. What's the task for today? What's your task for today? Folks, this is kind of like when I do phone banking. If you ask people to make a plan, they're more likely to follow through with it. So I'm asking you, make a plan, folks. What's your plan? What's your one task for today? Please verbalize it. Go ahead, Connie.
Hey, my turn.
Oh, Harold, sorry.
We are volunteers at the public library, and the public library's fall festival is today, and we're volunteering in the book sale room. We got to be nice to everybody.
That's your task for today.
Right.
And be nice to everybody.
In the book sale room.
Hey, person who hasn't spoken yet today.
Yes. How about to call somebody we love that we haven't talked to for a while? And
that's your task for the day. Do it, Betsy. Do it. You got this. And then when you're done your task for today, I think the next task is let me be proud of myself for doing it. And not say I still have an infinite more number of things to do. There's a quote from Kafka. He said, "The fact that our life and our task are the same length makes our task appear infinite." I'll say that again. Kafka says, "The fact that our task and our life are the same length, our task and our life are the same length, makes our task appear to be infinite." Mathematically, that one works out really pretty. Great. All right, we all have homework to do. Hey, Maria.
I'm here.
Hey, do you have a list of people we can send light and love to?
I do.
I'd like to work on this transition that I have there. It feels like, and now we go to Maria with weather. Like
I'd be happy to give you our weather report right
how
now.
is the weather report, Maria? Is it sunny?
It is absolutely gorgeous. It's going to be gorgeous all next week. So
okay. Enjoy. Go ahead, Maria. Now I feel like I just made the transition awkward.
These are the names to whom we are sending light and love: Greg, Eric N., Margaret G., Galena S. and her family, Rob B., Sheridan H., Randall M., the Kennedy family, John Nielsen, and Lois Lopez. If there is another person in our community to whom we can offer light and love, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list in the clubhouse. And for the people who aren't named, but who are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
Thank you, Maria. We're going to spend 1 minute of time. There we go. We got one. I have a 1 minute timer going. Let's take 1 minute. Just focus on light and love. Thank you for that minute of time. In our last few moments, I wanted to address something. Oh, I have some announcements to make. First, as always, super important. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to feel okay. It's hard. There's a lot that's out in the world right now, and it feels like a really scary place. And it is a scary place. And it's okay that we're not feeling perfectly well adjusted. And it's okay if you're having a hard time. It's okay. It's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to ask for help. Other announcement. I'm going to go back to the Angela Davis quote. And I do firmly believe that we can bring more love into the world just by being kind to other people. And I love to share that with you. And if you would share that with your friends,
oh, Nanny,
I would love that. If you would tell people, hey, I go to this service on Saturday morning. It's kind of like a spiritual religious book club without a book. Now, I do know that inviting people to a religious service would probably be you would rather tell people about, well, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't, but it's as awkward telling people about, hey, I go to this really cool spiritual religious service. Somebody said, Brian, I would rather tell people my favorite sexual position than tell them to do religiously. So I'm going to give you your choice. You can do either one of those two things this week. No, obviously, I do believe that we help to make this world a better place. And by spending an hour together, thinking about love and kindness and the importance of doing so, I think is important. I want to end, I've got just minutes until 12 o'clock where we break into smaller groups. Oh, and we had talked about opening up a new small room. Somebody remind me what the new room was going to be.
Politics. And I have it set up.
Opting out of politics. What was it called?
Politics.
It was just called politics. Hey, if you want to enter into a discussion of politics, I'm not going to be in that room. If you like to talk to people about politics, it seems a lot of people do want to share their thoughts and beliefs and clean up their thoughts. Please join the politics room. So we'll start a new room starting today, and we'll see how that goes. Despite the noises in the background, and I thank you for dealing with the fact that I'm traveling today, I have a last thought. My last thought is going to be incongruous with the background noises. But last thought is this. Folks, we're all going to die. We don't talk about that in our culture. We have finite amount of time on this earth. And I think one of the things that we do with finitude, Michael knows how is that we part of living a religious life is how do we deal with our own known finitude. And I think one of the things that we do as a collective, looking at our own known finitude, is we project it out, and we project the entire world is going to collapse. And people have been the world is collapsing since recorded time. Since recorded time, the world is about to end. I'm not saying that we're not in a heightened state of things are going really badly, but maybe we spend a little more time thinking about our own finitude. It would keep us from projecting it out onto the world. It's just a thought. Okay, that being my final thought of the day, I'm feeling a little like, well, I might have outlined that one a little bit different. That's an odd to end on, but maybe my talking about the fact that it's an odd note softens that blow a little bit. Folks, I thank you for all accepting me and my style in running a service and liking what I do and being part and showing up and bringing yourselves to. And I appreciate that very much. Okay, that was a little happier note. Let's leave that to be our last note for today. I want to thank the group who gets together on Wednesdays, who helped the group on Tuesday. Boy, did I try an idea that flapped on Tuesday. I had a whole, and that's why we do the Tuesday group. So guys, thank you for dealing with me and that bird quote going so horribly bad, so that everyone didn't have to endure it. So appreciate that group. Thank you for coming. I'm gonna can we stop the recording now, Alex?
Yes, we can.